Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we're talking about Part 3 to the Ask Developer series on the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We got another interview, and this one has some pretty substantial details that Nintendo has now confirmed about Tears of the Kingdom that are really exciting. But before we jump into that, let me point out that we recently hit 25,000 subscribers. It's been this campaign to reach before Tears of the Kingdom comes out. We're a couple days away and we've already hit the goal. So for everyone who have joined, who has enjoyed my content, who plans to continue to enjoy my content, thank you. It's been super appreciated. We're going to be streaming Legend of Zelda throughout the entire week, every night. Right now it's Breath of the Wild, and on Friday, it's going to be Tears of the Kingdom. So if you do enjoy my content and you haven't joined yet, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're going to continue talking about Nintendo and Zelda every day for hopefully a long time to come. On to Part 3, a world connected all the way to the skies. So they ask, I now understand the challenges and circumstances behind the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's development. You said that the setting is the same as that of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. However, now that you can explore the skies above Hyrule, does this mean that the world has expanded considerably? Fujibayashi, yes. There are the skies and caves to explore now. There are also areas we weren't able to create in the previous title for multiple reasons. Dota, actually, the previous title, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, was originally developed for Wii U, so there were restrictions in development. There was a lot of ideas we wanted to implement during its development, but we made clear decisions on what we wouldn't do in that game. For example, we decided that it wouldn't involve flying. Then Aonuma kept saying, if flying is out of the question, I want to dig underground. And we respond, oh no, please don't make us develop that too. Aonuma, it was just my natural response when playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, like man, I want to dig a hole right here. Everyone laughs. So this part's interesting for a few different reasons. One, because they were developing Breath of the Wild with the Wii U in mind, there had to be certain restrictions. But now that they're focusing just on Switch, they have a little bit more headroom, a little bit more power to work with, so they can accomplish more. So this idea of flying through the skies, where you see farther off into the distance, where there's larger scopes, more world to load in, and you're moving across more quickly, so it has to be loaded in more quickly as well. These are things that are more demanding that they may not have been able to do on Wii U well. Aonuma also hints at potentially underground here too, because he talks about being able to fly, but also wanting to dig underground. Continuing on, Dota. For The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we began by compiling and implementing ideas we couldn't include in the previous title. We wouldn't have been able to do so had we made a completely new world, so developing the same setting as the previous game was significant in this sense as well. And I think this part's cool because it's basically just saying, hey, because we're using Breath of the Wild as a foundation, we were to create a bigger, more dense world, and that part alone is very exciting. Takizawa. The entrances to cliffside caves might be a good example. Dota. In the previous title, the cliffs could only be climbed up, and the cliff sides were bare. Takizawa. I think that players who find a cliffside in this game might start wondering, is there one in the cliffs over there too? When a place, even one that's already familiar, is augmented with something of worth, you begin to see the world in a different light. Even as the game's developers, we started seeing the landscape in a different way while working on the game. I believe the way players explore Hyrule will change too. I appreciate what they're saying here, because by adding caves and underground sections and being able to fly into the sky with all these different islands, there's so much more to the world that's being added. There's so much more perspective and different things we can do around this world, and it's going to fundamentally change our experience, but there's going to be this sort of weird middle ground where there's an air of familiarity, but also an air of wonder and discovery, and that might be a very unique experience that we get in Tears of the Kingdom that you don't really get in other games. Continuing on, I see. It's a Legend of Zelda characteristic for one hint to lead to another, causing a chain reaction for players to view different places in new ways. How about the skies then? Fujibayashi. Although the walls in last game gave height, I thought the gameplay was largely two-dimensional. This time we added verticality, in other words, gameplay that utilizes height. We developed a three-dimensional world under the premise that you'll be able to travel from the surface to the skies seamlessly. Link also has a new action called Dive and a new outfit for the skies. So they're using the word verticality. They're truly aiming for a true full open air experience, and the skies add a whole other layer of true dimension to the world. Climbing up mountains and towers in Breath of the Wild added a certain level of verticality, but with the Sky Islands, that's really being fleshed out here. The way that we can traverse on the X and Y coordinates in Breath of the Wild that were substantial, it's now become substantial on the Z-axis as well. That has depth. Thinking about how to get to the floating Sky Islands seems fun. Fujibayashi. The actions you take to get there and the exploration of the Sky Islands themselves are both a lot of fun. The new actions and the sky area were such novelties to us that we added one Sky Island after another to test out the different gameplay elements. Then one day, the designers scolded us. They said we made the skies messy by adding too many islands. Takizawa, it was pretty cluttered. Aonuma. When we placed the islands to scale in the skies, I was surprised to see just how small they were when looking up at them from the ground. Dota. As with the previous title, we ensured that everything connected seamlessly. Things like houses were built to scale, and even if you enter a house, there's no map transition from the windows you can see outside exactly the way you did before entering the house. That's actually a big deal. Everything looks just as it should, but when we created the skies to scale on a seamless map and added features like floating stepping stones, they appeared too small from the ground and only looked like loose specks of trash. In the end, the designers did a great job adjusting their appearance. This part's also quite curious to me because when I look at the Sky Islands, it all makes sense, it all fits so well, but that's the kind of thing that us, the consumer, the gamer that's going to play this, we're going to take a lot of these things for granted. So it's something I appreciate from these developer interviews because they give a little bit more perspective as to the challenges they went through to make this work. So just something cool to keep in mind. Wakai. Connecting to the ground and the sky seamlessly also presented difficulties from a sound perspective. Dota. Yes, the sound staff often pressed the programmers to clarify where the dividing line between the surface and the skies was. Wakai. Sound transitions are done seamlessly as well, but the background music in particular needed to change according to the situation. Because of this, we need to place transition triggers to indicate where the music should switch. Dota. I'd never needed to consider where the skies begins before, so I had to think about it. Everyone laughs. Wakai. Also, it was difficult to find a fitting sound for the sky. Takizawa. I guess it's because the sky is a scene we've all only ever witnessed from inside an airplane, right? Wakai. Exactly. I knew what flying in the sky sounded like, but the request was for an island in the sky. Aonuma. After all, no one has ever been to an island in the sky. So this is another intriguing challenge that they're showing to us, thinking about how things are going to sound naturally in the sky when you can walk and roam around in a natural way as we can on the surface. This is not something that can be done in real life. So what they're doing here, what they're accomplishing here, is trying to think of a way to make this feel immersive and believable. But this is a fantasy world. These things aren't normal in real life, so there isn't necessarily a fantastic comparison. And I'll also note that it's nice to hear that they are being considerate of these transitions and this dynamic music they have for the world. Playing through Breath of the Wild recently, I'm noticing a lot of very subtle and dynamic changes with the music throughout our experience, which I appreciate quite a bit. Even with the Divine Beast, as you progress throughout them, it changes as you get closer and closer to the end. On that note, let's move on to the biggest news from this interview. We've only discussed the skies, but this title has its dungeons too, right? Fujibayashi. Yes, we haven't talked about the dungeons yet. They've changed from the previous game. For example, there is a dungeon that connects directly from Hyrule's surface. If you dive from the sky straight into the dungeon, you'll trigger an event. We think this will be a new experience that wasn't possible in the previous game. Dota. We've made dungeons unique to their respective environments, so we think you'll be able to enjoy the wide variety of regional characteristics. Takizawa. Making a wide variety was pretty challenging. The 4 divine beasts were the dungeons in the last game, and they shared similar designs. This time, the dungeons are huge and each carry their own regional look and feel, just like traditional The Legend of Zelda games. We think they'll provide a satisfying challenge for players. They were certainly a challenge to develop. I'm almost in tears right now, reading those last 3 pieces from this interview from Fujibayashi, from Dota, from Takizawa. Oh my gosh, this is exciting. So, they don't leave it up for debate, up for speculation. They're referring to the replacements to the divine beasts. They were referring to dungeons as in sharing similarities from previous Legend of Zelda games. So the return of classic dungeons, in a sense, they are here, but they are still different. They share the open air gameplay. But they've made sure to note that they will have their own regional look and feel. They will be unique dungeons. This is what we've wanted, large, unique dungeons that share some similarities from prior Zelda games, but still fit within the open air context of Tears of the Kingdom. We've gotten it. This is amazing. And they even talk about how you enter a dungeon from the sky can be impacted and how they could trigger an event. And that's very interesting. So there's a dungeon from the surface, but so big it's also in the sky. What dungeon is this one? I have wonderings. I am curious. I think it might be the Hebrew one, but I don't know that for sure. Could it be the one that's in the desert that they show in the trailer? Well, maybe we'll find out in a couple days. This is exciting news. I think this is more evidence that the Tears of the Kingdom Legend of Zelda team knew exactly what they were doing when working on this game. They understood the concerns about the game feeling too samey, so hence why they've referred to the great mundanity from the previous parts and how they've tried to address that. And the reason they decided to make this a sequel in the same world wasn't as a stopgap to do things easier, but so they can make the best, biggest, most dense world with most possibilities ever before. And now they've given us confirmation that they are giving us the dungeons we've been so desperately needing and wanting for the longest time. My hype is on another level, but we're not done. Parts 4 and 5 will be available tomorrow, and we will be talking about that. So stay tuned. The hype is real. This is Andre's Restart. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.